Hilaire.
Yes.
Did I get that correct?
You did.
And our Assistant Director of Finance, Dan Garrett. We have ex officio members from the Common Council, Lynn Tavershak, and we have individuals from the greater Danbury community. Now, because this is a very complex issue, and I just want to move right into the agreement. And David, if you can just walk us through what we have in front of us.
Sure, I do have handouts here. May. Before you is the establishment of the trust ordinance, the employee benefit trust ordinance for the other post-employment benefit. As you know, this is related to a GASB, it's called GASB 45. And we'll just...
If you can please speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. This establishes, there are three parts to this. The first part sets up the employee benefit trust. That's what you see in section 1. And the trust needs to be established in order to set up the mechanism for us to contribute funds into that. GASB 45 requires us to set aside funds for post-retirement benefits, such as health insurance, life insurance, and those kind of things. And based upon an evaluation that was done by Hooker and Holcomb, that I believe was presented previously, back in March?
I'm not sure if that's actually presented. That's what it was finalized.
All right, finalized in March. We have a liability outstanding of about $73 million, but the annual contribution is going to be spread out over 3 years for the city of about $7 million. But we need to set up a trust in order to have some place to put that money. And that's what the first section does. Any questions on that first section?
I do.
Sure.
David, and you mentioned the $73 million. Just to elaborate a little bit on that, please.
Sure. The 73, the way it was derived is that Hooker and Holcomb went through and looked at all the current employees and our retired employees, and they determined what is the liability that exists for our health and the benefits that could be provided to them upon retirement. Not just health insurance, but life insurance as well. And that is a liability that's, if you look at it similar to an outstanding amount due, and that's basically what it is for the city. What do we owe our retirees? It's a promise to pay.
Okay.
Right. And our current employees as well.
Yeah, through the chair to David. That 73 million, I mean, we owe a certain amount every year.
Correct.
And as more people retire, we owe more. As more people die, we owe less. I mean, there's a flow like a river every year. That 73 million is a fixed figure. I don't quite understand that. I know that we're concentrating on the trust right now, but since we're on this subject, what do you mean by 73 million? Is that the unfunded liability for the next 10 years or 5 years or 20 years? How does that break down?
That's a very good question. I'm sorry I didn't clarify that. That's actually amortized over the $7 million contribution is to help fund that over, say, a 30-year period.
Sure.
And that $73 million amount is the calculation based upon all the estimated retirees' potential benefit. There's several ways you could possibly do it. Pay it all up front, which nobody does. It's an impossibility to do that. Or you pay as you go. You pay a certain amount and you contribute into a trust. The trust is going to make investments, and your investments will hopefully get a pretty good return, and that will help you going forward. In your future contributions. So,
if I may, let's say that we magically found 73 million from amazing accounting. How long would that 73 million last? Because I still don't understand how that figure's being broken down.
How long would that last?
Yeah, you said it's amortized now over 30 years. Is that
Correct.
$73 million figure the money, the actual dollars the city
You
is
would be
planning?
fully funded if you contributed that right now.
Right now.
And now, what would happen is that would grow and grow and grow, and you would probably be overfunded,
Okay.
in fact. Given the rates, because we estimated a certain, what's called discount rate, and that was pretty conservative. Given the current market, or actually over a 30-year period, it's a relatively safe estimate.
And the average is we're paying out about $7 million a year, is that what you're saying?
That's what we're contributing into the trust. That would meet our current and our future.
Okay. How much are we actually paying out on average? If we just paid it as we went?
Oh, if we paid
We
it
had no contributions, we just, whatever the bill came due every quarter, we paid it.
45 did not exist.
Yeah.
I think we pay, what, $1 million, 4.2, and then we're adding to that 1.2 this year.
For the endowment.
For the endowment,
Okay.
and it's going to take us 3 years to build up to it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, actually, through the chair to Mr. St. Hilaire.
Yes, sir.
Couple, just so I have a better understanding as well. This GASB
45.
45, that's state? Is that a state?
No.
Or is that federal?
Yeah, it's a general, it's a generally accepted accounting principle. Generally accepted standards board requires that municipalities do certain accounting methods and procedures, and follow certain procedures. This is one of those recommended things that we do. And furthermore, we're also gauged when we follow those things, and we must follow them. Rating agencies look at us as well when we issue bonds. The auditors look at us to ensure that we're following GASBs. So it's all, they're all tied together to make sure that we're following sound financial practices.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
Do you have another question?
Yeah, follow up through the chair to Mr. St. Hilaire. Then, is there a certain time frame where we should have this in place by?
Well, You have to have the trust established, to start contributing the funds to it. So the goal is to, set it up sooner rather than later, and then when we're ready to start sending funds to it, at least it'll be established.
And again, through the chair, when would be the earliest if you're able to set up this trust and the ordinance, get the ordinance complete and adopted, what would be the earliest time frame for contributing?
Well, we have to first go through I'm not sure what the timelines are for as far as getting the ordinance passed and all that. There are a couple steps that you need to go through first of all. We would want to hire an investment manager, to help once we are ready to put the money in there. What are we going to do with it? We don't want to just put it into an account and let it sit there. We want to be prepared to properly invest those funds. So that's going to, take a little bit of time, but that's that's going to be a process we're going to go through too.
David, if you can continue on number 2 and number
Sure.
3, and then we can hold up questions until you're finished.
Sure. The second section is the appointment of a board, right? The board would be a 5-member board, and I would serve as a kind of a 6-member, an ex officio member. The 5 members would be appointed in 1-year term, 2-year term, 3-year term, 4-year term, 5-year term, and of course, when those terms come up, then they would be appointed to serve a full 5-year term. So you would have staggered terms. And, that board would together decide how things should be invested, would oversee the trust and direct the trustee. And of course, it states also in section 2 that the terms begin on July 1st of whatever the respective year is that they're appointed. The trustee receives no compensation. And then I think I've hit every point for that one. And I'll lead into section 3. The duties of the post-employment, other post-employment employee benefit board. So basically, in addition to help manage the assets through the director of finance, is to tell the director of finance to how to invest those funds. That's what it basically explains the duties. And the duties of the board are explained further in the agreement. That should be, was that passed?
There's a packet.
That packet.
It's a packet that we received.
Oh, in the last council, was it in the last council meeting?
So is it my understanding now, in terms of a motion or what we are here today talking about, is reviewing this, we have to take some action on this, and we have to put something in motion to approve this, plus approve an ordinance and send it before the common council. So it's really 2 parts.
It's
Is that
2
correct?
parts,
Okay.
yes. Because you have to, and Les, if you could make sure I'm saying this correctly with this, I think we have to do the ordinance first before you do the agreement, correct?
Yes.
Because
yes.
otherwise you wouldn't have a trustee set up.
You could do them in order, where you would adopt the ordinance. It requires a 2/3 vote to do that. And within the adoption of the ordinance, to also authorize the establishment of the trust agreement. So it could be in one, but you're right, the ordinance comes first. Within it would be the approval of the trust agreement.
Then I have another question. David, on the establishment of other post-employee benefit board, and I know maybe this is a crazy question, why is it the other? I mean, is there any reason why you call it other? I mean,
Well, because there's a pension piece.
okay.
And that's the only reason, I know it's confusing, believe me. A lot
Which
of
is
people
not
get-
in it?
No, because a pension is completely separate. But this isn't considered part of this, because we have a separate pension plan for our retirees. And that's why, and everybody gets confused on this, and myself included, when I first started looking at this a long time ago.
So that's
What's
why
this
I-
other post-employee? And it's because pension plans are separate from this. And we deal with pension plans under a totally different title, you know.
And then the second question, in terms of qualifications for the five-member board to become a part of this other post-employee benefit board, are you going to set some sort of qualifications that these people have to have? Such, would they have to be an accountant or CPA, or have the ability to set up trust funds, or have had so many years of doing such work as this? Is there going to be any type of language, or is
Yeah.
there any language somewhere?
I'm sure that, you know, it's up to the discretion of the mayor, but I'm sure, you know, I'm going to ask the mayor that, you know, they're going to be advising the trustee, you know, me on this, and I'm going to count on this board to give me some sound advice. So, you know, we're going to need some qualified people for this board.
But my question is, when you talk about the ordinance, will that language of the qualifications be a part of the ordinance language?
You mean, say, it has to be, what, a CPA, or it has to be,
Well, you can just say anything that
investment
well,
person?
or something in terms of the qualifications.
it's not part of the ordinance, and it's kind of difficult to mandate that, simply because you know, you've got such a group of people out there with all sorts of different kind of experiences, and not all of them have certain titles.
Okay.
You know, the kind of, you know, for example, you may have someone from this board that may be from the fire department that may not have that kind of title, but has a strong vested interest in how this board is run.
Well, my only comment was because I know I chaired the architectural review committee, and we put that into an ordinance. But a part of that ordinance, we had the language saying if you want to become a part of this board, you have to have certain qualifications. So
Are
in
they
terms of the
broad?
legal,
Oh, sorry.
so in terms of the legal language, maybe I should address that to Les. Is that something that should be a part of the ordinance to say that if you want to serve on this board, you have to have certain qualifications?
According, Mr. Chairman, according to the statute that provides for the council's right to enact such an ordinance, the council can determine the manner of appointment, the kind of appointment, the qualifications if they want to. So you can either, you have the discretion to either leave it to the judgment of others, and so David, Mayor, whoever would be able to determine together with advisors who the best folks would be, or the council can designate qualifications in the ordinance. The number 5 doesn't have to be the number either. It's a number that's suggested in here, but it can be a different number. So it's really up to the creating body doing this, proposing this.
Okay. Lynn,
Jane,
through the chair.
it's actually to the chair. Jane, to the chair. I have a couple of boards that I sit on that manage a pension that I benefit from, and I think one of the things that this would strive to do is to make sure that the post-employment benefits of city employees are protected from the Director of Finance investing them. I believe that he said that they were going to hire an investment manager, someone of professional, really good professional standing to invest the money. What we have to be concerned about is these are retirees. They aren't working anymore. They're getting benefits that were negotiated. And those 5 people are probably going to be primarily retired city employees. And they are going to watch the hen house. That's my understanding. That's what my pension board does. None of us have expertise, but we know that we want our money well managed, and we want to keep our eye on this guy.
Okay. Is that how you see it?
Certainly. Well, I think it's a very good idea that the board keeps their eye on whoever is. That's the job of the board, to keep the eye on the trustee. Mm-hmm. And the trustee is going to count on the board to be active and involved in that aspect. And hopefully the trustee has good investment advisors and hopefully has a constructive board with constructive input that can advise the trustee on how to go with things. And that's what a smart trustee does. Nowhere in here does it say the trustee has all the power. That's not what it says. It says by the direction of the board. So, but thank you. I do appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the other committee members?
Through the chair to Les, does the state statute allow Danbury retirees to be on the board?
It doesn't prohibit it. It doesn't say specifically who's to be on the board or not.
I think we could include language that speaks to expertise and vested interest. I think we would want, and I'm not sure it's a good idea to have retirees on their own retirement board because it may be a little bit there may be too much tension, but assuming it is a good idea, I don't know anything about this, and Lynn seems to think it is a good idea to do that. Maybe
Who
it
better?
is. What?
Who better?
Who better? Well, I mean, there's a lot of different answers to that. I mean, you have a bunch of lay people who don't really know about money, managing their own money, when often these very same lay people hire professionals to manage their money. It may be, anyway. I think I would be comfortable with language that simply said the members shall be comprised of people either with expertise or vested financial interest in the decisions of the board. Having said that, clearly we're talking about an instrument of some risk, because if we wanted no risk or as little risk as possible, we could take this money and put it into a government bond instrument at 3 or 4%. We'd get a low return, but we probably wouldn't need a board and trustees and whatnot. So my guess is what we're doing with this is we have some untouchable funds for the normal retirement that are guaranteed with cost of living increases and whatnot. And then we've got this, which is supposed to hopefully make some money for these guys, some extra money. Are we correct on that?
Well,
because we seem to be saying this is the other thing. We've got the guaranteed thing, and then we've got this. Is that what this is supposed to be? An experiment in the private sector to maybe?
No.
No.
If I may,
sure.
Let me clarify that a little bit. It's there's a portion of it that pays for the current portion, which we do anyways. This goes above and beyond. This does something we haven't done. And quite frankly, other communities haven't done either. And they're starting to, because it's, it's quite frankly, it's a large chunk for them to take on. And they're doing it kicking and screaming, and some of them are just plain ignoring it. It's one of those things that they say, we'll just take care of it as it comes to us. But But that's not what we're doing here. We're saying, we know we've got it coming, and we're going to start not only paying what's in front of us right now, our current liability, this year's liability, but what's going to happen in the future, you know? So we're putting money aside for the future, money that we've never done before. And so we're going to build that pot up, and eventually the returns on that will hopefully take care of.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Will hopefully take care of it, even take care of some of those potential risks in the cost of future insurance costs. So it's actually very, very good what you're doing, you know, because you're taking care of your current problem, but you're taking care of you're taking a huge step here, you know. So the risk you're taking is, you know, let me put it this way: you're putting money aside, and that's money you haven't put aside yet. It's not like the pension people, as an employee, you're putting money away in your pension and we're risking their pension money. It's different. What we're doing is we're putting money aside to cover their future insurance costs, which we're going to end up covering one way or the other anyways. What we're saying is we rather try to set that money aside right now. All right, Gatsby tells us we really don't have a choice. All right, we're going to have to do it one way or the other. You know, I wish Uncle Sam would do that with Social Security, but hey,
If I may, just to follow up, I understand the concept, and I'm in general in favor of that. We're putting money away for the future. We have to take care of this one way or the other. Right. So let's see if we can make a few bucks on the money that we're putting away. To me, that's not the issue. That's a no-brainer. But there's a couple of different ways of doing that. There isn't just putting a board together, getting some guys who think it's a great idea, and let's buy baseball cards and old comic books and antiques and Camaro SS's from 1968 and some gold bullion and some T-bills and whatnot, a nice big package, and we'll make 28% a year. We could lose it all. Orange County lost $2 billion. Long Island lost over $1 billion. I mean, these are sums beyond the dreams of avarice that have disappeared because they got way ahead of themselves. And that's real money that they lost. Yeah, we're putting it aside and we're using it for the future, but it's coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. And we're putting some guys on this board, or we might be putting some guys on this board, who aren't necessarily the best qualified to make investment decisions. Although they're probably the best qualified in determining the outcome of this because it's going right into their pocket. The taxpayers, ultimately from the city of Danbury, are giving the board this money, the authority this money to invest. So what I'm talking about is maybe, are we here to decide, should we be aggressive with these funds, should we be conservative, or are we simply going to do an experiment? As you say, not a lot of communities are doing exactly this. Are we just going to do an experiment and let some people decide what they're going to do with this money? That's what I'm saying. I would like to see, maybe at first, something much more conservative than aggressive. We've got to spend this money anyway. Even an extra dollar at the end of the year will be a dollar that we don't have to spend. But I would really hate to see us lose any of this money because we got a bit too optimistic. And I know that's hard. Listen, I have instruments that are worth, I've had for 15 or 20 years, that are worth 20% less in actual dollars than they were when I bought. Let's leave inflation out of the equation. They've done really badly. I've got some that have done really well, and over time they balance out. My property's done fine. Some of my stocks have just tanked. But I've got a nice basket, so that's fine. And I'm sure that this will too. But is there something that we can do that we can recommend to the council that while we are, and I don't want to speak for the committee, but I am in favor of this with some qualifications, that we have some protection for these funds?
I mean, one thing that the pension plans have done is, they set up parameters. That's what they typically do in these kind of things. They set up parameters, as far as percents to be invested in, you put maximum and minimums. What you can invest in equities, fixed incomes, and those kind of things. And if you recall, you've done that for all the different pension plans that you've done. And that diversifies your portfolio, minimizes your risk. And so you're not, you're hopefully alleviate some of that that unease, because nobody wants to gamble with this. This is real money.
And it's this board that makes those decisions, this being the authority we're about to create?
Member board.
They have the final say.
They would have the say, but it's the investment advisor. You would hire an investment advisor for the pension boards. We happen to use Smith Barney, but you would hire a type of investment advisor that would advise and consult.
Okay. Shay, have you any questions?
I do. Through the chair to Mr. St. Hilaire, what other municipalities in Connecticut have something set up? Have this type of...
Norwalk, I believe. Dan, anyone else?
Norwalk's the only one that we know of has the almost identical language, other than titles being different.
Gotcha. And do you know when they set it up, or is it fairly recent? Or?
I believe it was back in the spring, but it was fairly recent.
And actually, a follow-up question to the chair. Actually, either to the chair or to Corporation Counsel, just clarification. The parameters that Mr. St. Hilaire talked about that were of concern to Councilman Rotella. Does that actually pertain to this particular meeting? Is that something that we would be talking about at this meeting? Or are we just talking, I just want clarification, are we just talking about the possible, the ordinance being drafted and the trust agreement being put into place? I'm not sure.
Yeah, if I can address that this way. This committee at this meeting, I think, is charged with listening to the proposal that is coming forward, deciding whether it wants to institute this trust plan. You could reserve the issue of the details of that for another meeting, or you could decide tonight. But what you have to decide is whether you want to institute this, or recommend it to the council, I should say. And if you want to include any parameters with respect to membership, number of members, kind of members. And that decision drives what Councilman Rotella was concerned about, because by establishing parameters of membership, the kinds of experience or expertise you have, you will help establish the security of the trust. Remember, you have three players, essentially. You have the trustee, who will be the director of finance. You have the membership, the board membership, who will be comprised of some members with expertise, and you'll have an investment advisor. Collaborative group to drive this proposal forward. That's your security blanket, if you will. You have a group of people working together on that.
Well, David, I have a question. In terms of the time frame, are there any time frames on this that it has to be in place, that it has to be done? Because as I'm reading this, it says this is to move the city forward with the funding requirements set forth. So when does all of this have to be in place?
We're not under any kind of, deadline here for this. I'm not aware of any deadline.
Through the chair, there's no statutory deadline for doing this. As I understand, it's a matter of that, based on GASB's viewpoint of safeguarding future assets, as David suggested before, the earlier you begin, the more you're along the way.
Okay. So in terms of our charge, though, David and Les, we're listening this evening to the overall proposal. So we don't really have to act on it tonight if we don't want to. We can come back as a committee, or we can say, sure, this is fine. Maybe we want to tweak something this evening and then send it to the Common Council for their approval. Is that the overall flow?
There's two ways to go. One is you can have another committee meeting, and after this meeting, you simply recommend that the officials return to you with a proposed ordinance. So you'll see an ordinance that says, okay, it says 8 members, 4 members, 5 members. Here's the level of expertise, okay. And then you take that language, ordinance as proposed, and then at the next meeting, you adopt or recommend that for adoption. It's Plan B is that you can say tonight to recommend adoption of the ordinance with 5 members, with the following expertise, and then be more specific either way.
My suggestion, personally, I'm not comfortable with this. I want more specifics. I don't know how the other 2 committee members feel about this, but I'd like to go back and I would like to have a second ad hoc committee meeting, if that's appropriate with both of you, so that we can see the actual language. Yeah, definitely.
If I may?
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to direct Corporation Counsel and the Finance Department to create some sort of a document that we can further send to the council.
And we can review.
An ordinance, whatever we want to call it, maybe a draft. I have a couple of issues. I've spoken to them tonight. With the indulgence of the committee, I would like to see a balance between expertise and interest, maybe 3 professionals and 2 retirees, something like that. I would like to see a mission statement that puts conservatism or protection of funds in front of return for the moment. And I would also like to consider perhaps sunsetting the entire committee after 5 years. I would like to be able to have an instrument within the ordinance that would allows this without a great deal of fanfare in 3 or 5 years to be re-upped if necessary.
Okay.
Because it's money we're talking about, and we're not talking about money for 18-year-olds. We're talking about money. It's widows and orphan money. It's the most important money. It comes from the pockets of the taxpayers, but it belongs to, by decree, people who not are at the end of their working life, but have passed the end of their working life. And if something were to happen to those funds, there really is no easy way to replace it without digging into the... Okay, that's my little speech. So if...
And I agree, Paul. In fact, that was my first comment regarding qualifications, because you just don't put anybody on the board. They don't know anything about money.
Even if it's their money. I mean, I don't manage my money. It's my money. Somebody manages it for me.
You have to have an expert.
What do they say? A fellow who is representing himself as his worst client, something like that with lawyers. I think it may have to do with financial advisors as well. But that's an opinion.
A lawyer that represents himself as a fool for a
there
client.
You go. Thank you very much.
There's a lawyer here. But we can use that for anybody, by the way, right? Not just lawyers.
Hold on. Shay, do you have a final comment?
Yeah.
Or question?
Basically, and I just want to reiterate, I agree with both of you. I think that it's maybe in its early stages, and there are some details now that we know that there are parameters that we can include, which I wasn't sure, and that's why I had asked that prior, because those are good points that are brought out that aren't stated here. So maybe we come up, but like you said, between the finance department and corporation counsel, come up with maybe a more comprehensive ordinance and trust agreement, keeping in mind the parameters set forth as far as who would be on the board and so forth.
I'm going to let you make the motion, but we have one final question from Lynn. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Lynn?
No, go right ahead.
Lynn, go ahead. Go ahead. Come on.
One of the things that concerns me is the people who are the recipients of this. If they have a problem with the board members or the advisors or whatever, this is a political town. I'm sorry, but it truly is. And if you're appointing people for the next 5 years, if our charter changes, as we're talking about, that the mayor may end up for 4 years, I'm really concerned, whether it's Republican or Democrat, that people could get on these boards that if the people who are receiving it are really unhappy, what mechanism would they go through to try to change whoever is sitting on the board? Because you're appointing by mayor and by council, but you're not really talking to the people who are the receivers of this. Thank you.
Good. Lynn?
To the chair, again, because you're choosing to meet another time, I'm hoping that perhaps Dan and the new finance director might tell us how we stack up in comparison to other towns, because the widows and the orphans are really taken care of through the pension. And what we're talking about here are other post-employment benefits. And we have more than one union. We have Teamsters, I believe we have SEIU, I'm not sure of, we have fire, we have police. But are we offering too many post-employment benefits compared to other towns of our size? When I hear this number, a $73 million liability over 30 years for non-pension benefits, I can't imagine what they are. And whether or not they run out. How long is a contract? At the end of a 4-year contract, don't you negotiate again? Are we providing health care for all of our retired employees through every bargaining unit? These things aren't clear.
David, I'm sure, can bring that back to our second committee. I know he's listening very intently, so he can make that comparison.
Great.
Okay? And then last, prior to our next ad hoc committee, if we could perhaps get a draft of the ordinance, please.
And a question to the chair, would the points that Councilman Rotella brought up be the consensus of the committee that those would be addressed in the draft ordinance? The number of members, I don't know if you didn't say number of members, but the expertise broken down through the mission statement and the sunset?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for the committee, they'll have to speak for themselves, but I would like to see, if we have 5 people, which is an odd number, I would like to see more of them being professionals and less of them being retirees. So I would be comfortable with 3 and 2. Recognizing, of course, that ultimately it's up to the council.
Right, that's subject to change.
But I mean, this would be a recommendation, that we have more professionals than less, that we sunset this, that we protect the funds. We foremost for the mission is protecting the funds. We can grow them with very little risk at all by putting them in some sort of federal instrument. We know that. We don't want to do that. Apparently, we want a little bit more, returns, but still, we want them protected. And maybe you could speak to the questions that were brought up, removal of members and whatnot. I mean, without including that in the thing, but at the next meeting, you could say, how does a committee normally do it? But that's what I would be comfortable with.
Okay. Are we ready for the motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion then at this time that we continue this meeting pending the receipt of draft ordinance and trust agreement with the information or with the things suggestions, there you go, that Councilman Rotella and others have made.
Right. Give me a second to the motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Discussion at all? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carried. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So we
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. Adjourn.